Hello, everybody, and welcome to our presentation. My name is Omar, and I'm going to be presenting Gates of the Arctic, America's Remote Wilderness. Alrighty, so first is the introduction, or the origin. So, Bob Marshall, also known as Robert Bob Marshall, was a U.S. Forest Service forester and wilderness advocate that traveled to northern Alaska for an expedition in which he explored the Brooks Range in 1929. Bob Marshall documented his experiences in his 1933 book, Arctic Village, where he interacted with the native Alaskan people and also gold miners as well. While crossing the northern fork of Koyukuk, he named two adjacent peaks the Gates of the Arctic, and so that's basically how the name was formulated. Marshall's discovery led to the official establishment and the creation of the park on December 2nd, 1980. As for the location, Gates of the Arctic National Park is the most northern park in the United States. The only way to travel is by plane or hiking. There are absolutely no roads or trails, particularly because of the environment itself and how harsh it is. But at the same time, it's just, I guess they wanted to keep it preserved and not really expand. There are projects that are trying to be done. There's trying to be roads paved, but the local communities around are heavily against this. Alrighty, so moving on to geological, environmental, and archaeological or other special features of the park, we're going to start off with the terrain. The Brooks Range primarily makes up most of the park's area, and the nearest towns are Bettles, Coldfoot, and Anaktuvuk Pass. As for the environmental harshness, the Gates of the Arctic National Park is the most remote, and it is the least visited national park in the United States alone, which is pretty crazy to think about, and that means a lot of it has been untouched. There have been very few parts that have been actually visited. As for the summers, they last for about 2 months only, and the sun stays up for 24 hours a day. The winters are extremely, extremely intense, and there are constantly blizzards, which, create that true harshness of the environment. But the people, the animals, the plants, everything around has adapted to this, of course, over time. As for the wildlife, the Gates of the Arctic falls under the bear country, where the landscape is prominent in grizzly bears and black bears. In fact, if you try to visit the national park, you are required to bring bear-resistant food containers for an overnight stay. Other wildlife include caribou, foxes, moose, wolves, wolverines, gold eagles, and Arctic hares, etc. As for problems that the Gates of the Arctic National Park has faced that have been recurring, first we have on the list thawing, permafrost degradation. Climate change has affected the Gates of the Arctic National Park for, last couple of decades or so, but, this park is no exception. There have been many other parks along the area of Alaska that have been affected because of this, and, this is no exception. There has become an increasing instability from soil and rock because of the permafrost thawing, causing debris flow. This in itself can affect ecosystems. An example being the mass amounts of minerals that result from thawing, causing rust in rivers and diminishing the health of fish. The sediment carried into the water can decrease clarity and overall quality as well. Second problem we face is erosion, obviously. The flowing rivers have over time undercut the slopes, which can, eventually lead to their collapse. Like mentioned prior, the strong Arctic winds from blizzards can pick up particles and erode effectively. Evidence of this erosion can easily be told from the U-shaped valleys. A lot of scientists will observe this and, obviously look at the geographical changes and make that conclusion because of that. The third thing is formulation of the Brooks Range. So the collision of the North American plate and other smaller tectonic plates hundreds of millions of years ago caused the creation of the Brooks Range we see today. Over this period, as mentioned before, glacier movement and erosion then influenced integrity and shape, creating the valleys. societies near the Brook Range they've had to, adapt to the harsh conditions. But they've, lived, and honestly, there's one indigenous group that is surrounded and inhabited, used the land as hunting grounds for, I believe, 13,000 years. Indigenous groups must work around the environmental factors to navigate. Seasonal migration and hunting/survival are also dictated on these mountains, influencing the wildlife within the area. Moving on to the solutions of, these problems that we currently talked about. First on the list for thawing permafrost, we have ground temperature sensors that can help measure the rates of thawing. The reduction of greenhouse gas emissions also can help reduce the climate change impact on the environment itself, and that means, less thawing as well. Research on the thawing can be done, from climate stations that have been set up. We can also try to utilize GPS and deduct from a macro scale, observations or any changes along the geographical landscape, and that can help kind of pinpoint from a visual perspective. Moving on to the erosion, erosion is something natural. It's never going to go away, and it's something that will continue to happen and affect the earth. But, that's something that we can acknowledge, develop awareness of, learn to live and deal with it. And, it's obviously something that us humans can adapt with, as well as animals. For example, one of the nearest towns near the gates of the National Arctic Park, they elevate their structures. Those structures consist of stilts and piles and can be very portable. They can be moved easy. And this further along strengthens the idea that the locals have adapted to the challenge of erosion. For the third solution we have for the Brooks Range, in regards to, seismic activity within the region, earthquakes are minimal, the area is not as active as that of southern Alaska near the Denali Fault Zone. It is very unlikely that a collision like that of the North American plate long ago can formulate again of that magnitude. Last time, this was like over 100 million years ago. So, it's something that is extremely unlikely. As for the conclusion, although the idea of the gates of the Arctic National Park is, the most remote, and the environmentally harsh conditions of it constantly evolve and challenge the landscape, the people around it, the animals. Although this may seem overwhelming, there's a beauty that comes from that. The preservation from the community, the flourishing ecosystem and the wildlife, the diversity of it all truly makes it one of a kind. Thank you guys so much for watching this presentation, and you all have a great rest of your day. Oh, here's citations. Thank you.